Hello guys, welcome to Wix Ideas. In this video, I want to show you how to add triggered emails into your Wix form. So let's say you have a form and you want to be able to receive email, and you also want your users or the person who submitted to receive an email as well. Then this is the right tutorial for you. So if you're excited, please don't forget to smash the subscribe button and also give this video a like. So let's go ahead and begin. Now the first thing I want to do is to create a form. Now this place or this section looks like a perfect place for me, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these sections or these elements, and I'm going to go ahead and say submit a form. Okay, now the next thing to do is to start creating the form to be able to match the theme that I'm currently using. This is a Wix theme that I got off from the HTML theme store, and I'm going to leave a link in the description below for you to go ahead and check them out. So what we need to do first of all is to enable our dev mode. So let's turn that on, and then we're going to start adding our input elements or fields that we want to be able to use to enter visitor information. So let's go over to add, and then scroll down to you get to the inputs, and then let's start adding our input elements. I'm going to go with this one, and I'm going to customize this to match the theme that I'm currently using. Alright, so this seems like about right, and I want to go ahead and add 3 fields. So I need the first name, the last name, and the email. So I'm going to change what this says to first name. So go to settings. I'm going to change this from URL to text, and then I'm going to change or add a field title that says first name. And then I'm going to go over to the placeholder and say here and say enter first name. So the first name is going to be required because you can use this to send out email, and then you can also reference them using the name they have provided. So that's going to be saved into the contact list. So the next thing I want to do is to go ahead and customize or design this field in order to show this text here. So as you can see, I added a text over there, but the color is different, and I want to change the field title to white, and then I'm going to change the required to red. Now you can see that is looking better, and the next thing we want to do is to go ahead and duplicate this. So go over to duplicate, and then we're going to duplicate this and use it for our last name. So let's go over here and change this to last name, and here we're also going to change this to say last name. And the next thing and the final input element we're going to have is the email. So let's go ahead again and duplicate this form, and then I'm going to change this from first name to email. So let's go to settings, and then here from text we're going to change this to email. Now this is going to help us validate if the content that was entered into the field is actually an email or not. So let's change this to email, and then here we're going to say enter email address. Now once you're done, you can hit enter, and then we're going to add a button that actually submits the item. So let's go over to add, and then to buttons. And then here you can choose any button that you like. For me, I'm going to go ahead and choose this one, and then I'm going to customize this to look like the theme. Awesome, so this is looking all good, and I want to go ahead and change what the text says from button. I'm going to change this to submit. Awesome, so the next thing I want to do is to create a database that's going to store this information. So let's go ahead and create 3 fields in our database that's going to store our first name, last name, and the email. So go over to the databases here, and over here the content collection, click on this plus sign and new collection. And here we're going to change this to forms, or I'm going to change it to contact forms. So let's say contact form, and then click on create. Okay, so here I'm going to go ahead and start creating my first field. This is going to be the first name, hit on enter, and then the next one is going to be last name, hit on enter, and finally we're going to also create the email. We can hit on enter, and most importantly we can get rid of this one. But before we can do that, let's make sure that the email is a primary field, and then we are going to get rid of the title field that we do not need. So delete this one, and you can simply drag this to the beginning of your form. And most importantly, we're going to go over to the settings. So go to more actions and then collection settings. We want to make sure that anyone can actually submit this form. So let's go to permissions and privacy, and here you can see can view the content. So we want anyone to view the content, can add content. We want anyone to also do that. So whether you are a site visitors or member, you can go ahead and add the content. And who can delete the content? We want only the admin to delete the content and only the admin to update the content. Once you're happy with that, go ahead and save. Now once you're done, we're going to publish the website to make sure that our settings here have been saved. All right, so now we're going to connect this form field to our database, and to do that we need to add an element called a dataset. So I'm going to go over to add. I'm going to go down to content manager, and here you can find the dataset. So just click on this one, and you're going to add this dataset to your page. Now the dataset is like a glue or like a link that connects your items on your page, on your front end page, to your database. So it can either save items there or get the item from there. But for this purpose, we need to save an item. So go over to the settings, and here we need to link the collection or database we just created, and the name is called contact form. And once you're done, you can go ahead and rename this to whatever that you want it to be. So I'm going to leave mine as it is, and the mode, for example, is going to be write only, because we want to be able to save content and save onto our database. Now once you're done, you can go ahead and click on this element, and here you're going to find this connect to data. Click on it, and then we're going to link this form field to the field into our database. So here is the first name field that we created earlier. We're going to link that. We're also going to link the last name to the field, the last name field we just created, and you're going to see that here. And finally, we're going to link our email to the email field. And most importantly, we need to save all the items that the user has entered to our database using this button element. So click on this button element and head to connect to data. And once you're done, you're going to go to the click action connects to. Now this is going to connect to the submit. And once you're happy with that, you can go ahead and add messages that show up when the items have been submitted or not. So I'm going to add the success message, and I'm also going to add the failure message. Now these messages will show when the items have submitted or not. So here I'm going to drag this to the end of my page or the form, and here you can see that the content has been submitted. This is the success message. So click on edit settings, and you can edit this one to actually make it look the way you want to. Now for success button, it can look something, maybe a green color can go better with success. All right, so let's go ahead and customize this to the way we want it to be. Now this looks just fine, and also the failure message is also going to look the same, and I think this is just fine. So you can drag them above each other because they're only going to appear one at a time. Okay, now this looks like we are very happy with what we have done. And the next thing we want to do is to create a triggered email or an email template we're going to use to actually send it out to the user. So to do that, we're going to head here under the developer tools, and then you can go down and you can see under automations we have triggered emails. So click on the triggered emails, and it's going to bring you to the dashboard where you can design the email templates that you want to use. All right, so now we are here in the dashboard for our triggered email. Now yours might look different if you haven't added anything yet, but the most important thing is to click on that get started button. And once you've done that, it's going to allow you to start adding your items. And the first thing we want to add is the sender details. So this is going to be the sender's name and the sender's email. So let's go to add details, and this is going to bring up a new window for us. Now this is the name that will show that this is the person who sent it. So for me, I'm going to say Wix Ideas, and I'm going to leave this email as the email that I'm going to use. So you can change your email here, and once you click on save, it's going to allow you to use that specific email. Now sometimes it's going to send you a code to that email to confirm if the email is yours or if the email is working. Just go ahead and copy the code and place it in. Now once you're done with the sender details, we're going to go ahead and create new, or you can go ahead and click on this button here. Now once you create a new, it's going to bring you to a clean new email that you can actually completely customize to the theme that you're using. Okay, for example, you can add text, you can add images, you can add buttons, you can add dividers, as many things as you want, and you can customize these to the best that you want. Okay, and the most important thing here is that we can actually add variables or some kind of keys or values or data of the person who actually wants to send the email. So for example, we're going to say thanks for getting in touch, and we want to add the person's name. So to add a person's name, we need to create a new variable that will hold the name after the person has submitted the form. To do that, we're going to go to add variable, and here I'm going to add the first name. Now you can name this anything you want, but this is how I want my variable or my ID to actually look like. Now we're going to click on add. This is going to add a variable just in front of the thanks for getting in touch. And here I'm going to add some details to what I want them to see. So I'm going to say we have received your message, and say please find your submitted information here. Now I want to align this to the left because I want it to be easier to to behold when you see it for the first time. I'm going to go down a bit of lines, and I'm going to add first name. And here I'm going to add another variable in front of this. Now this is going to show us it is first name, but I want to add the first name, the actual first name that they entered in the form. So to do that, we're going to go ahead again and add a variable. Now I'm going to be using exactly the same variable that I used here because I don't want to duplicate or have different variables for the first name. So for the first name, I'm going to call this first name, and the callback again can be anything that you want it to be. Now the fallback is when there is no data, and if there is no data, you need to choose something. So for example, you can just say dude, okay, and add the variable. Now I want to make this one bold because I want this to be able to show that it's a new item. Then go to the next line and enter the last name. And then we're going to add another variable that will hold the last name. So go ahead again and enter the variable, and here is going to be last name, and hit on enter. And we can also make this bold. This is actually very optional. You can go ahead and play with these as much as you want. And then the last one is the email address. Okay, so the email address is going to be another variable. I'm going to create another variable called email. And once you're done, you can go ahead again and click on add, and here we can make these bold. All right, so this is looking great and amazing. And here you can change this image. You can change this to another image that you want, or you can just simply delete it. I'm going to delete it because I don't really need it. And this button can go to your website. So as you can see, it automatically enters the link to your website, and you can change this to visit us. And the amazing thing about this is that you can completely customize this button as well. So go to design, you can change the font, you can change the text color, and you can change the background. So I'm going to go back to my site. I'm going to get the color that I used for this button element, and I'm going to get that color and use it instead. So let's get this color code, and we're going to bring this back to this section. Right, and then click on save. Now you can see how that is beginning to take its shape. You can remove the border, you can add the corner radius, and so on. So go ahead and do what you know how to do best with this, and make it look nice and so on. Now once you're done and happy, go ahead and save and publish. And once you have saved and published, it's going to bring us to something that we really need to use to connect it to our code. Now it's going to give us something to work with, and it's quite amazing and fun. Now here is the code we need to work with. As you can see, we have a code or some kind of ID that we're going to use specific for that particular trigger. Now you can change this trigger to whatever that you want, whatever you want. You can customize the ID as much as you want, but I'm going to leave mine as it is because it's just an ID and it's just fine. Now go ahead and copy this and then say got it. Now once you're done, for now we're done with this section, we're going to go back into our code. and now we're going to be working with our code. Now again, don't forget to turn on your dev mode to work with your code panel, and head over here, maximize your code panel. And once you're done, you can get rid of everything that is already here and paste in your new code. Now you can see right now we have some errors, and that is completely fine, and the reason is because we haven't added anything yet. Now the next thing I want to do is to add my own code. I've been able to customize this to make it work, because sometimes it doesn't work, and the reason is very understandable, because the code that was given to us from the trigger is not enough to just make this to work. So I'm going to go ahead and copy my whole code. I'm going to show you also the similarity I have here, and I also have with what Wix gave us. Now you can see that we have something very similar. We have the library, the triggered emails from the Wix CRM. It's exactly what I have here. Now I'm also importing the Wix CRM, and the reason I'm doing is because I want to create a new contact. So each time you submit the form, it's going to create a contact ID, and then it's going to send you the email. So now what we have here, these lines, is exactly what we have here. Now that makes it easier for me to go ahead and delete what I just copied. And I'm going to go ahead and delete this. But most importantly, I need to have an ID, an email ID that works. This is the email ID, and I'm going to get the one that was given to me from this specific email ID. So copy this ID and place it right over here. Now once you're done, you've successfully linked that email or triggered the email to your code. And now we're about to start entering the most important sections. So what we want to do is to be able to send out this email after our item has been submitted or saved. That means we're going to be working with the Wix dataset. And to work with the Wix dataset, we're going to use the already function. So let's start by calling our already function. Now the already function is going to help us in a way that we actually make our dataset already function to also work properly. Now I have wrapped my entire code inside of the already function. Now I'm going to go ahead again and wrap it around the dataset already function. Now we're going to also make sure that our dataset is ready, and that this action is going to happen when the dataset is ready. Alright, now I'm going to wrap these around again. Now you can see that we've successfully wrapped our entire code inside of the elements already function and also the datasets already function. Now we need to add another function, which is the on after save. Now this is the dataset on after save. What happens when our items have successfully saved into our database? So here we're going to go to dataset on after save, and we're going to add this function and wrap it around our email templates that we just created. So copy this and wrap it around this section. Now this is about looking great. Now after the item has been saved, we want to send out our email, but something is very critical here. If you can notice, I have this session, and this is the session storage that stores data or simple information into your browser for a short period of time. Like when you close the tab, the item will be deleted. Now I'm using this because these items will not be sent into your email when you use your data set to save them. And the reason is because after the data set has saved them, it's going to wipe out everything here, and there is nothing there to send to your email. So what I'm going to do is to write a short simple code that is going to help me save those information into my session storage. Now I'm going to click on this already function, and I'm going to come over here and write a simple function that is going to help me to save those items to my Wix, to my session storage. Now first of all, we need to call our session or import our session storage. So let's import, and we're going to import our session from Wix storage. Alright, now we have imported our session from Wix storage, and as you can see, these errors are fixed already. And now these functions or these lines is just going to get the items, but we actually don't have the items yet. Now let's create the items. I want to create the items when I begin to input my elements or my inputs. So for example, the first name, let's go ahead and name our elements. So this is our first name element or input. So I'm going to call this first name, and this is our last name. So I'm going to call this last name, and this is the email. So I'm just going to call this the email. I'm going to go ahead and click on the first one, which is the first name. I'm going to copy the ID it has and bring it right here, place it there. And I'm going to use the onInput function to actually say that when the user begins to input the element, then that is when I want to be able to save the item to the session storage. All right, now we have the onInput, and next thing I want to do is to add the session storage that actually sets or saves the value for my first name. So we're going to call the session, and we're going to say set item, and then we're going to get an ID that is going to save it with. I'm going to continue using the first name ID, and then I'm going to add another parameter that saves the first name, and this parameter is going to be the value of the first name. And here I'm going to go ahead and call in the first name dot value. So it's going to save the value of the first name inside of this key or ID. Okay, now we have successfully allowed the user to save their first names into the session storage, and next we want to save their last name as well. So click on the last name. Let's head over to the ID, and then I'm going to bring it right here, put a comma, and add another ID there. So this is how you add multiple IDs in the same line. And here I'm going to go ahead and copy this section, and I'm going to duplicate it and add another line. Now I'm going to copy again the ID of the last name, replace it right here, and I'm going to change this key and say last name. Now if you don't change the key here, it's going to say, for example, if you type in your first name and they have the same key, and then you type in your last name, it's going to overwrite what was here. So you need to make sure that you change these keys to make them unique. So they need to be unique. And finally, let's add our email. So head over to your email, copy your email and bring it right here. And here I'm going to go ahead and add another ID for the multiple IDs. So now we have the first name, last name, email onInput function, and this is going to run inside of them. Now go ahead again and copy this line and duplicate it for your email. So copy your email, get over here and put in your email value. And here we're also going to change the key to say email. And as you can see, inside of our triggered email, we have variables we want to send out. And these are the variables that we created earlier inside of our triggered email template. Now it's going to be saved in our session storage. And as you can see, this first name key is what I have here, and this last name key is what I have here, and the email key is what I have here. So if you have multiple items, just follow these steps and you're good to go. So if the items don't have onInput, you can simply use the onChange. If it's a radio button, it's a drop down, you can use the onChange, and that is completely fine. The most important thing is that you're actually saving the values there. Okay, now we're good to go and we're about to start testing this out. Let's see if I'm able to receive a message on email when I actually fill out this form. So let's go ahead, save and publish and view this on the live site. All right, so now we're here in the live site. I'm going to scroll down to my form, and this is my form right over here. So I'm going to enter in my name, my first name, my last name, and then my email address. So I'm going to click from the drop down and submit. Now once you submit, you can see the item have been removed, your content has been submitted, and I'm going to bring you to my email where I'm going to show you if this email was received or not. So let's go to my email and I'm going to show you how it's been displayed. So you can see from here that it says Wix Ideas, and it says thanks for getting in touch, Walter, my first name. And then you're going to see when I open up this email, you're going to see all the variables that I've entered, my name, my first name and last name, and the email that I used. Now this is going to show created with a send, because you need to actually upgrade to remove this functionality, and this is the button I designed. So you can go ahead and have a lot of fun with this, play around with this and see what you can do. Now most importantly, I want the site admin to also receive an email. And to do that, we don't need any code. It's just a very simple, straightforward thing we need to do. Now we need to get over to the automations, and then we need to create an automation that is sent out automatically when an item is saved into our database collection. Now we are here in the automations. Let's go to new automation, and then from here you can search for as different automations that you think you want to use, but I do want to start from scratch. All right, so I'm here in the Wix automation from scratch, and what we're interested in is the Wix Data Form. So click on the Wix Data Forms, and now we need to search for that form that we want to use. So we need to get a specific form, and we're going to have another drop down that says select form. Now this is the form I'm interested in. So this is found in the home page, which is correct, and it submits to my contact form collection, and then apply. Now once you're done, it's going to trigger something whenever a user submits to this form, and what we want to do is to get an email or be notified by an email. So I'm going to go ahead and choose the email that I want to be sent to, and as you can see here is send notifications to email, and I'm going to use another email. I'm going to use my wixnobles@gmail.com. And then here is the email subject. So you can go ahead and change the email subject. So for me, I'm going to say a form was submitted to your website. And the message can be anything. I'm going to leave this blank, or I'm just going to say message goes here with this. And most importantly is you want to include the details of what the user has uploaded or submitted, and you need to make sure that this is toggled on. And once you're done, you can go ahead and activate your automation. Now this is going to ask you for a name, and I'm going to say that this is automation and this is custom contact form or triggered. Yeah, that's just fine. So let's leave this as custom contact form or triggered contact form, and then save. Amazing. So this is the trigger. Now this is the automation that we have just created, and I'm going to go ahead again and refresh my page, and I'm going to again submit another information, and then let's see how that goes. All right, now let's head back into the form, and I'm going to submit another form here. I'm going to use my name, and I'm going to also use my last name, and I'm going to also use my email address, and here I'm going to submit again, and let's see. So this having submitted, that was quite fast. Now let's head back to my email and refresh the email. So now I have received another email from Wix Ideas, and when I click on it, you're going to see that because it's a duplicate, it's going to actually make it collapse in a way. But then when you expand, you can see it's 0 minutes ago, and this is the same information that I have submitted. This was the first one 6 minutes ago, and this was 0 minutes ago. And I'm also going to open up another email address that I use, and this is the automation that sends it to the admin. So Wix Nobles was what I used for the admin, and here it is. So this is, you have received a new confirmation, received a new notification from my site. And this is the subject. A form was submitted to your website, and this is the message goes here. And as you can see, it gives you all the information that you need: the created date, the time where you're sending from, the time where it was, and most importantly is the details that we actually filled in. So this is how you add a triggered email and also an automation email to yourself as an admin into your Wix website. If you really did enjoy this tutorial, I'm sure you're going to enjoy my multi-step tutorial where you can actually have multi-step forms and can send out triggered emails to your site users and also an email to yourself. So thank you very much, and see you in the next video.